They're always saying they're going to change Great Britain. They never do. Tony Blair got a perfectly sensible report about changing the House of Lords out of Roy Jenkins, and nothing happened, nothing at all. The Prime Ministers went on.
That's not true. Plenty happened.
In effect, nothing happened, and they appointed persons such as yourself to belong to the House of Lords. What have you ever done which is the slightest use to anybody? Nothing.
Well, before we come to Keir Starmer, can I just say that it's not one of Danny Finkelstein's better articles. It has all the marks of an article written between Christmas and the New Year.
Joan.
Gosh. It's entirely speculative. There's no evidence. He doesn't cite any particular policies. He just wings an idea, and he's very good at it. I hear him in the House of Lords, where he has a seat. He's very good at that. He's a journalist. But when it comes to talking about what Keir Starmer stands for, he's nowhere. The point is, Keir Starmer has set out his plans for the country in major documents, which he has commissioned, some from Gordon Brown. I've got it here, 150 pages of how to restructure Britain. It's going to change the structure of the country, give more power out of London, reform the House of Lords, I'm glad to say. And he has plenty of attitude and opinion about what should happen to industries that aren't functioning.
Yes, but Joan, writing a document of 150 pages, or however many pages Gordon Brown likes, and you can imagine how stultifyingly boring a document, even 10 pages by Gordon Brown, must be.
It isn't if you're the subject of it. It isn't, Andrew, if you're the subject of it.
It's not going to change things in the very least, because we know how inefficient the civil service is. We know how utterly incompetent politicians are, and whatever they write in documents, whether they're 10 pages, 150 pages, 1,000 pages, none of it will actually happen. It never does happen. They're always saying they're going to change Great Britain. They never do. Tony Blair got a perfectly sensible report about changing the House of Lords out of Roy Jenkins, and nothing happened, nothing at all. The Prime Ministers went on.
That's not true. Plenty happened.
In effect, nothing happened, and they appointed persons such as yourself to belong to the House of Lords. What have you ever done which is the slightest use to anybody? Nothing.
Joan, is the wider argument here, though, that basically it's just for what middle of the range voters look at this situation and go, I don't really know specifically what Keir Starmer stands for on many issues. And is that not a good thing for the way he's playing it, to keep his cards close to his chest outside of big, long 150-page documents?
I think I think the word is radical. He's more radical than perhaps people give him credit for, and I think that's a good thing. He's got plenty of ideas about. I mean, if you remember, it was the Labour Party who suggested taxing the energy chief executives and the people who are making a lot of money out of the shortage of energy, and the Tories took up that idea and put it into practice. So, I mean, they're quite radical, quite pioneering, and really important.
We know that Keir Starmer has broken the never kiss a Tory rule. I wonder if that makes him a little bit more the other way. Who knows? Joan, we should get you to defend yourself against Andrew's accusation that no one ever does anything useful in the House of Lords.
Well, I mean, Andrew is mistaken in that Tony Blair did reduce the number of hereditary
peers. Yeah, he did.
He did. There are still 50 left, and they have got to go.
They put in lots of people who, I'm not suggesting Dame Joan paid to belong to the House of Lords, but there were lots and lots of people who gave money to the Labour Party, Conservative Party, and their reward was being able to call themselves Lord or Lady something, and claim lots of expenses out of your tax, and sit in the House of Lords passing these resolutions, which may sound very impressive, but I can assure you the general quality of life has not been changed by the House of Lords, probably since the time of the Reformation.
Well, Joan, how do you feel about your?
It's not meant to be changing legislation. The House of Lords is there to revise the rather faulty legislation that comes through from the elected government of the country, which sits in the House of Commons.
Which is equally ineffective. I mean, it doesn't do anything. It's just a talking shop.
It's checks and balances, isn't it? The House of Lords.
And how do you feel about being scrapped, Joan? I mean, how would you about it being scrapped?
Andrew's cancelled you this morning, Joan.
It's going to be revised. I thoroughly approve of the proposals. It desperately needs reformation, and I think it needs to be as half elected House, half appointed. I think the proposals are interesting. It's a consultative document. Of course, the House of Lords needs reforming.
They went further than that, though, didn't they? They went further than just half. It was basically the removal of the Lords. We don't know what it would be
No,
called.
no, it's going to be a second chamber, half elected, half appointed. I mean, it's a document up for consideration.
But elected.
But it will be a second house. Yes, there will be a
elected second house.
Some of it will, and possibly some appointed. The hereditaries will go, possibly some of the bishops. There are 24 bishops allowed to sit in the House of Lords. We could dispense with some of those.
All right. Let's move on from dispensing of bishops and Joan in the doghouse to doggy bags, shall we? And that seamless link. Beautiful broadcasting there. Right, doggy bags. Spain basically is going to make it law that restaurants and bars will be obliged to give you a takeaway container that has to be a reused container, recycled or easily composted, in which to take your leftovers. A takeaway tub of a doggy bag, as it were. Do we applaud this, or is this going to lead to all sorts of issues with restaurants, I don't know, having to spend as much time giving out the leftover food as they are serving it, and also Brits being too polite to ask for the leftovers? Andrew, is this something that you can get on board with?
I like the idea very much, but I must say, I have a small appetite, but I love going out to eat. I've never, ever been refused a doggy bag or whatever you want to call it.
So you regularly ask for them?
Regularly asked. I actually have a dog who always, if I'm given meat, I like about one mouthful and then the rest is for the dog as far as I'm concerned.
You're kidding.
Wow.
So you do have a very small appetite. I mean, I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone with a small appetite before. And
I like eating the vegetables and and the sauce, and I take a little bit of the meat. The rest, the dog enjoys very much. I've never been refused, however posh the restaurant. And I think it's a nice idea. As was said earlier in your discussion, if you go to the United States of America, which is apparently inhabited by Brobdingnagian gluttons, and they give you these huge plates full of food which nobody could possibly eat. Of course, you're given a bag immediately or a box.
But it is a doggy bag in the truest sense of the word for you. Would you ever, serve up another fifth of the steak the next day for yourself?
Oh, yes,
would you reuse the leftovers?
Of course, I often heat up stuff I bought at a restaurant. And after all, half the restaurants in England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland are takeaway things anyway. There's a takeaway service. So, I think it's a very good idea, but I wouldn't legislate about it. But there's no need.
Joan, we spoke to Aldo Zilli, the celebrity chef, a little bit earlier, and he said half the problem is that the British are too shy. They don't want to complain. They don't want to ask. Do you think it would help if we changed the name, doggy bag?
It's not a particularly charming word, is it? I think it's a good idea. I don't like the idea of it being made compulsory, because I think it was much better if they simply put a little box on your table when they serve the meal, and you put in it what you don't want to eat at the particular table.
This isn't fine dining, though, Joan Bakewell, isn't it? You can't be served a lovely dinner in a Michelin-starred restaurant and then a little plastic tub with it.
I don't see why not.
Why not?
Okay.
Why not? Her late Majesty ate her breakfast out of Tupperware. I don't see why the rest of us shouldn't.
And Joan, would the Lord's Terrace give you a doggy bag?
I have no idea.
Or do you always finish up everything on your plate?
I think I do. When I've eaten in the House of Lords, I think I clear my plate.
I absolutely love this. What an insight into Joan Bakewell and A.N. Wilson here. I've learned today that A.N. Wilson really dislikes the House of Lords and has a small appetite. And Joan Bakewell, Joan, you've just been Joan today. Yeah. Brilliant, Joan. Listen, thank you to both of you. It's been very illuminating indeed. We'll get to some of your messages, actually, that listeners have been sending in. We'll get to some of those after the news. However, though, first of all, thank you to A.N. Wilson, the author and journalist, and to Dame Joan Bakewell, the journalist, for joining us on the show this morning. Thank you.